Hey guys, welcome to the American Tribune Live. I'm just skipping the music. I had to say it. It was a minute of just music, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I'm diving right into the show today. Welcome aboard. Welcome aboard, folks. This is a live show. We are turning the comments on right now, so you can see it on the screen right here. Let me know your thoughts today. But we have got to talk about, hey, we got Split Rock Coffee in the house already. I'm never playing music again. Split Rock, Paul over at Split Rock Coffee, already reposting the stream. Thank you, Paul, for that. And Paul, while you're at it here, a little shout out to you as well, my friend. Folks, if you are looking for delicious coffee, go to splitrockcoffee.com. Use promo code TOD10. Subscribe and save today. I am drinking the breakfast blend, but I promised my wife I would be cool, collected, measured today. I'm just sharing the facts today. Had to talk about this. We had to talk about the fact, and good morning to you as well, Paul. We had to talk about the fact that Democrats have gerrymandered every state they control. This is not hyperbole. I'm just going to show you the facts today. I'm going to show you the stats about this. The narrative right now is that Donald Trump is directing Greg Abbott down in Texas and directing other Republican-led state legislators to gerrymander the heck out of their states here, and they're rigging the system, and this isn't what we signed up for as a democracy. You've always had Republicans in blue states and Democrats in red states, and I just got to tell you, this is all a lie. I know you're really shocked to hear this, that the media is lying to you about what's been going on really for decades at this point. Democrats, when they get in power, they want to maintain that power and grow their power as much as possible. Republicans, for my entire life, have tried to be like the principles party here. Like, they try to be above it, they try to compromise, they try to seek unity, or they're just cowards for the most part and spineless. And then what happens is we have this relentless march towards Democrat tyranny. So we've got to talk about this today. I am making this podcast with my mother-in-law in mind. Good morning, mother-in-law. I'm not going to use her name here. My sister-in-law in mind. Good morning, sister-in-law. I won't use her name here. Some of my wife's colleagues here. Again, normally I scream and I rant, and I don't know, maybe you guys appreciate that. It makes me feel better. I always get off the show and I'm like, I got that off my chest. I'm glad. And despite all the Split Rock Coffee, splitrockcoffee.com, promo code TOD10 that I've been drinking today, I'm not going to do that. We are going to get back to brass tacks. When the show started, I feel like I was a little calmer. And then we gained a little momentum on the show, and I was just outraged about everything. And like I said, it was just good for me to get it off my chest, but it's not a productive way to necessarily do a podcast. If you're trying to change minds, present information here, you can't always yell. So we are just going to present facts today. My premise is this. I completely reject the mainstream media's narrative that Donald Trump is trying to rig the system in his favor. I mean, he is per se, and I'm fine with it. But the larger point is that this is what you do when you're in power. I have often said on the podcast here, there are two competing visions in America. And if one side, the Democrat side, wins, they implement their vision 100%, no breaks, no compromise. They go full communist. And when our side gets in power, in my entire lifetime, like I said, they just try to get along. And I'm over it here, folks. So if your side wins, your side makes the rules. And I'm glad to see Republicans are fighting back. Republicans need to gerrymander the hell out of these states. They need to boot illegals off the census. They need to pick up another 30 to 40 House seats, because if roles were reversed, Democrats would be doing the exact same thing. Why do you think Democrats invited millions upon tens of millions of illegals into this country? Is it because they're worried about the humanity? They're worried about the poor and the downtrodden around the world? Or were they trying to juice the system in their favor here? Get illegals counted on the census. Get more House seats. Have a larger count in the Electoral College process every 4 years in presidential elections. They're not worried about people. They don't care about what happens to them once they're here, but they know that when they are here, they're counted. They know when those people have babies, they will vote Democrat reliably because they're dependent on the system. That's what Democrats care about. If you're a Democrat voter, this just in, the elites that you vote for do not care about the well-being of all the people they invited into this country. They are using them as pawns. They are using them as statistical counts to boost their power. That's all this is. When Democrats get in power, they gerrymander all their states. And we're going to talk about that right now. But I had to go on the tangent about the illegals here, because the next time some Democrat voter is like, Todd, you're so heartless, you don't care about them, my response is, the people you vote for don't care about them. I care a lot about them. I want them to be completely happy and secure in their home nation of origin. I don't need them reliant on the government. No one's ever better off when they're reliant on the government. I certainly don't need to pay for them. When was the last time you opened up your house to a room full of illegals, Democrat voter? When was the last time you wrote a check to them? When was the last time you drove them to the doctor? You think you're a better person than me because you vote to steal my money, my time, my energy, my resources, and then have it handed over to them? That doesn't make you a better person. That makes you a thief, and it makes you a moral fraud. Never mind, folks. I'm already fired up. But no, you're not a better person for voting to take care of illegals here. They shouldn't be here. They have a place they can go back to. Let them figure out their own life and their own problems in that home country. And I'm going to deal with mine in this country right now. And Donald Trump is doing a great job to solve those problems here. Again, got to boot off the illegals from the census. That was the Democrat play all along. Democrats simply wanted to import people that they could use on a spreadsheet to get more power in our democratic process, if you want to call it democracy anymore. I don't know if it's democracy, but that's what they're going to defend still, because they really care about democracy. They love democracy so much, they want you as an American citizen to be underrepresented, and they want illegals to be overrepresented. So yes, great job saving democracy all around, my Democrat voting friends. Oh my goodness, Jason, I was just saying I'm trying not to be caffeinated today. I'm a little bit tired, folks. I went for an 8-mile run this morning as well. I woke up early and I was like, whatever. The kids aren't in the house. They're sleeping over at grandma's. Normally I'm parenting and tired before the show. Today I'm just exhausted from having to run 8 miles in preparation for a race in October here in the Twin Cities area. But I am caffeinated, trying to compensate from a little bit of fatigue here. I will probably not leave this chair the rest of the day. I think I'm just going to sit here. My legs don't work anymore. I can't move. I might just podcast for a couple hours because I have nothing else that I'm going to be able to accomplish today anyways. But Jason, I'm trying not to be as caffeinated, trying to be a little more measured today as we talk about why Donald Trump, why Republicans need to gerrymander every last seat possible, because that's what Democrats do. And folks, let's just dive right into it here. I'm going to share my first screen. I can never figure out the buttons. Sorry, I gotta find a producer for the show that's actually capable of doing this. Let's share this one right here, folks. So the next time, I'm going to play clips. I've got Massachusetts Governor Heatley, is that her face? I got her talking about how this is a rigged game. Kathy Hochul will share some comments from Kathy Hochul about, I can't believe what Texas is doing down there to the 5 seats. And we got all sorts of narrative. I got an MSNBC clip that's going to just be creme de la creme of the meltdowns because they're trying to redistrict. Take a look at this screen right here. And the headline here, I'll just read that as well for those that are listening on audio. It says, to those fleeing Texas Democrats that say they are saving democracy in Texas, saving democracy by avoiding quorum. Yes, nothing says I'm saving democracy by preventing a vote from being held. Again, I don't know. If you're a Democrat voter, let me know in the comments below. What is your definition of democracy? You have been fighting to save democracy against Donald Trump for over a decade now. And I'm not quite sure what your definition of democracy is, other than when you're in charge and you make the rules, those are good. And when you're not in power, not in charge, and other rules get made, that is bad. I think that is the distillation of your definition of democracy here. But Donald Trump is playing by your own rules, and I am so glad for it. I am tired of the spineless Republicans, the cowardly Republicans, the principled Republicans that always have principles appear when Republicans are about to do something good for once. They never have principles when Democrats are in power. Then they just fundraise off of lies. And then when they are in power, they don't do anything about it and implement their moral principles. So we got enough of them. I have a clip from Mike Lawler, by the way, Republican from New York. He won't be shocked to hear this at all. He's opposed to Donald Trump's plan because that's going too far. We might never return once we cross that bridge. It might be burned behind us if Donald Trump gerrymanders districts. And Mike Lawler, I got news for you here. If you live in Massachusetts, I got distracted there. I'm going to finish reading the top line. United States relative to congressional redistricting. Here are the facts. You can fact check these all you want, folks. These are real. I fact checked them myself. In Massachusetts, over one third of the state, 36% of the voting public went for Donald Trump in the last election. They have 0 House seats. 0 House seats. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, there's a third of residents in Massachusetts, a third of congressional districts ought to be represented by a Republican then, or drawn to allow these Republican voters to have a voice in Congress. But no, that is not true. They have 0 seats in Massachusetts. It gets worse in Connecticut. 42% of the state voted Republican, voted for Donald Trump, and they have 0 seats in Congress. Again, you might be asking yourself, gosh, 4 out of 10 residents voted for Donald Trump. They might have a voice in Congress to support Donald Trump's agenda and vote for Trump's agenda. You would be wrong about that. They have 0 seats in Connecticut. Maine is 46% Republican. They also have Susan Collins, by the way. So I don't know. If you're a Maine Republican, quit the charade. Just call yourself a Democrat. You voted for Susan Collins over and over again. So these Northeastern Republicans, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too generous calling them Republican. But nonetheless, they voted for Donald Trump, 46% of them. They have 0 House seats in Maine. New Hampshire, 48%. This one actually shocked me. If you know anything about New Hampshire, you're following along there. This is the state that's trying to basically distance themselves, secede from the Union there. The libertarian movement is quite strong in New Hampshire. But 48% of the state voted for Donald Trump, and they only have 2 House districts, full disclosure. But again, if half the state votes for Donald Trump, you would think half of the seats, 1 out of 2 seats, would be allowed to be a Republican. False. They have gerrymandered the state, drawn the lines in such a way that there are 0 Republican seats. Moving down to Rhode Island. Folks, put on your Nostradamus hat, take out your crystal ball here. I got Rhode Island, Vermont, Hawaii, Delaware. What didn't make the list here, I think I have a separate list that has New Mexico up here as well. These aren't even all the states in the screenshot. But Rhode Island, Vermont, Hawaii, Delaware, you got upwards of high 30s, low 40s, voted for Donald Trump, registered Republicans, not a single House seat. That is a lot of goose eggs from where I'm sitting there. And if you can see the screen, sorry, Jason, I'm going to take your comment off. If you can see the screen, that's a lot of Republican voters in the northeastern part of the United States, Hawaii. They elect Mazie Hirono, so good luck with that. But they have 0 Republicans in Congress. Let's share this screen as well, because I think this adds New Mexico to the count. I can't see it from there. I got to go back to my other screen. So New Mexico, 44% of the state voted for Donald Trump. Guess what, folks? They have 0 House seats. And then here's a map of Illinois. Illinois is just one of the worst. Yes, they have some Republican districts. Those Republican districts also voted for Adam Kinzinger. So again, take this with a grain of salt when you see some Republicans, because you're like, hold on a second, you voted for Kinzinger. You vote for Susan Collins. You voted for all of these rhino cowards and sellouts. But all of the blue states, when they get in power, this is what they do. And honestly, if you're a politician, this is the part where I'm going to say I don't blame you for it. If I were a politician and I wanted to implement my vision, and just for the record here, my vision is correct. Democrat visions is highly incorrect. But that's what you do. You get in power and your goal is to stay in power. We always complain about politicians like, yeah, their first job is to get elected in office and your second job is to get reelected to office here. And somewhere down the list, it doesn't even exist, but maybe at some point you serve the constituents that keep voting you into office. So every American kind of agrees with that premise that a politician's number one job is to get reelected. Well, how do you do that? You gerrymander the hell out of your states to make sure that people on the other aisle aren't going to be able to vote you out. But blue states do this. I have just shown you the evidence of that. And again, I am laying out the premise here that, again, it's not a shocker to my audience here, but I'm kind of doing this podcast in mind with some family members, with some friends. I'm trying to be a little more measured about this today. I am presenting you information before I get to now the narrative by Dems, by the media shills, that Donald Trump is going too far. He is ending democracy. This is mutually assured destruction if Texas redistricts 5 seats. And for the Dem voters out there, I'm going to pop this one back up again. I would simply ask, what do you have a problem with this? So this is the playbook right now. If Democrats are in control of the governor's mansion, if they have both chambers of their state legislative body, and they don't allow a single Republican voter to be represented in Washington, D.C. at the House level, is that a problem? Or is it just a problem when Republicans do it? And yes, I know the answer to that. It's the latter here. I don't think any Dem voter is A, aware of these statistics, or B, bothered and concerned by these statistics here, because the morality of a Democrat is often decided by what is my opponent doing. I made a meme on Facebook the other day. Jason, you're in the comments. Let us know how it did here. But I basically summarized Democrat morality as being whether or not Donald Trump supports or opposes something. And I stand by that. I think that's what Democrat principles, Democrat morality stems from. What do I need to be mad about if Donald Trump is taking position A? If Donald Trump's going to make Washington, D.C. safe again? Well, now I'm mad about that. So those are my values right there. Whatever Donald Trump stakes out as a position, I'm going to stake out the opposite position because I oppose fascism. And even though Jasmine Crockett was out there the other day calling him Timu Hitler, I had to call her out on social media and say, which one is it, Democrats? Is he actually Hitler or is he Timu Hitler? And do you guys not even understand what Timu means? Like, the left can't meme. But which one is it now? Have we downgraded him to just a pretend wannabe Hitler? Because for the last 10 years, I was fairly certain he was Hitler. So make up your minds on that. But yep, we got to oppose Hitler there. So he wants to make D.C. safe. So Dems are going, no, you can't do that. We want crime in Washington, D.C. Donald Trump's going to secure the border. Well, he's a fascist for doing that. We support open borders. We voted for Kamala Harris to have wide open borders in this country because it's the opposite of what Donald Trump is doing. And you start to understand that none of this makes sense. None of it's principled, because what happens if Donald Trump changes his mind? Let's say Donald Trump was like, you know what? I actually want crime to get really bad in D.C. just to, apply a little pressure to Democrat voters. They're not going to listen to me. They're not going to be persuaded by the good things I'm doing. So I'm going hands-free here. I need every Democrat voter to get mugged by reality and mugged by these useless thugs out in D.C. Maybe once they get mugged by criminals, they'll be like, please, Donald Trump, help us. I don't want to be robbed going to my car at gunpoint anymore at night in the nation's capital. So, I mean, if Donald Trump staked out that claim, he changed his mind. Democrats would be like, Donald Trump doesn't care about you. We're going to make D.C. safe again. We'll finally lock up those youths. That's about as far as the Democrats' morality stretches these days. Got some fantasy football chatter going on in the box right now. 2 drafts on September 2nd. We'll have to figure out how that works as well. But that is Democrat morality. Change my mind on that. If you're a Democrat viewer watching the show right now or you catch it later, let me know if I'm wrong about that. But from where I'm sitting, that seems to be pretty accurate. Well, what is Trump doing? So I'm going to take the opposite approach. That is not a solid foundation for morals and values and principles, but that's where Dems are these days. And Paul Reese, we're going to take a second break here. Paul Reese says go to splitrockcoffee.com. Use promo code TOD10. That is TOD10 for instant savings. SplitRockCoffee.com is disabled veteran owned right here in Minnesota. I'm in Minnesota. Paul's in Minnesota. We had Jason Robertson in the chat. He is from Minnesota as well. We are trying to spread the word from blue state tyranny. I don't have a congressional map of Minnesota, by the way. I'm just going to predict, though, that it is gerrymandered. And honestly, folks, fact check me all you want on this. Pull up any state, look up any congressional House district. It is never like a square. I think everyone would agree once upon a time, okay, we have X amount of people living in a state that allots us X amount of seats for Congress. We will just divide the state by whatever number it is, and they will all be the same size, population, geography. And you can't do it. All of a sudden, it's impossible. And then politicians come along and they're like, well, if we draw a little line out here, we can carve out, some Democrat votes there. So that's a Democrat seat now. They've always done it. It's always been this way. What Donald Trump, what Republicans in Texas are proposing is not new. You tell me, my Democrat viewer out there, how it is that Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, New Mexico was on the map, Rhode Island, Vermont, Delaware. You tell me, explain to me how Republicans have zero congressional representation, but then tell me why it's bad that Texas is basically following the same playbook. And I have often said, I want Donald Trump to simply use the same playbook as Democrats who do not care about compromise, who do not care about doing the right thing. And it is simply astounding to listen to the narrative that Donald Trump and Republicans have gone too far. I got to toss it over to Mike Lawler in this case here. Let me make sure we got all the stats shared. Now we'll go to Lawler for a second, then I'll get back to Grok. So Mike Lawler is a Republican from New York, gerrymandered New York, by the way. Mike Lawler would know. He's on there saying, you know what? Never mind these stats right here from Todd's show. Never mind the fact that pretty much everyone in the Northeast that votes Republican voted for Donald Trump has zero representation in the halls of Congress. Forget all that. That's just how we do things. You see, when Democrats do something, that's business as usual. When Republicans notice and push back, suddenly that's not good because that's going to be agitative. That's going to maybe burn down democracy because we've got to be hyperbolic about that. It's kind of the same thing in the culture wars. Culture wars, we are winning. Donald Trump's victory in politics also meant a victory in the culture wars. But Dems would parade naked dudes in these pride parades. They would toss their genitals in front of kids, and they would say, that's normal. And then we would be on the other side and say, hold on a second. You know what? We tolerated gay marriage, and now you are prancing naked in front of a 5-year-old, which, by the way, if you're an adult bringing your 5-year-old to a pride parade, shame on you. I'm not a big fan of CPS, but I think I can make a distinction between I don't like the government taking kids from homes and also you're bringing your kid to a pride parade. So we notice that and we push back and we say, we're actually going to make a law that says you can't do this anymore in public because this is indecent exposure. And we notice and we push back and they scream, how dare you? We just need a right to exist. This is what narcissists do. This is what Democrats do. They are one and the same. They push your buttons, they poke and prod all day long, and as soon as you notice and react, they say you started it. We would all be fine if you just didn't say anything about pride parades and grooming kids in schools. And so as soon as you notice, you're like, hey, why are you gerrymandering your state so there's no Republicans? They're like, this is normal. When Republicans do the same thing, though, when they push back, that is too far. See, we just have to live in this very specific Overton window of normalization of whatever Democrats want it to be that day. And as soon as Republicans try to break out of that mold, all hell breaks loose. So here's Mike Lawler. He might as well call himself a Democrat. He says, I don't like what's happening in Texas. And let's listen to his explanation why.
is doing. I don't support it. I think it is wrong what has happened in Illinois or New Jersey, for instance, which has a quote-unquote independent redistricting commission.
All right. So again, this is what the weak-minded, I'm going to call him a low IQ here because I think he might be just being dishonest here, but this is the low IQ take. You always sit on the fence and you're like, I don't like what Texas is doing, but I also don't like what Illinois is doing. I would ask Mike Lawler this question. When have you ever spoken out about Illinois' gerrymandered districts? When have you ever spoken out about gerrymandering in general when it benefits Democrats? I guarantee if you go to his Twitter timeline, you go to his little website, whatever, he's never addressed this before, but suddenly Donald Trump wants to do it, and now he's principled. You see, he discovered his principles when Republicans were in power. And I said this earlier in the show. Republicans' principles always get in the way when they're about to do something good for once because they're afraid of using power. And Republicans, the younger generation of Republicans, I think they understand this a little bit better. Your job after you win is to implement your vision. That is it. Republicans, yes, they're on the right. This goes for any politician, by the way, whatever, however wrong or right or evil or good you are. If you win, it is your job to implement the vision that got you in the office and to maintain your position in office here. So when Republicans win, and again, I don't like the will of the people phrase because half this country votes Democrat. So what does that tell you about the will of the people? It's wrong half the time. But we did win in this case. Donald Trump won in a legitimate election. We haven't had one of those in a while. And even if he didn't win with a will of the people vote, he is on the side of right and morality and justice in this case here. A vision to keep America safe should not be controversial. Removing illegals, defining our nation's borders, providing tariffs to make other people pay rather than making us, the American taxpayer, subsidize these other nations here, exposing and eliminating some of at least the rotten abuse and waste and grifting and fraud and corruption and laundering that takes place in DC thanks to Doge's efforts here. There's very little you can say if you're open-minded about what actually is harmful that Donald Trump is doing here. These are all good things. He is on the right side of everything. And to all the femmes out there, he hasn't touched the issue of abortion because that case is resolved. It is back in the states where it belongs. Only you guys are insane about this bill. And by the way, there have been more abortions since Roe got thrown back to the states than there were pre-abortion. And Roe even had limitations. Like, I don't even think Dem voters understand this here. The Supreme Court, when Roe was the law of the land, let's say, it actually imposed limitations that every state had to abide by. You couldn't just murder willy-nilly in the third trimester. You had to have some reasonable designation. So they're like, well, viability is like 24 weeks. So you can't just murder a baby after 24 weeks. So Roe gets overturned, and then all the blue states draft legislation. Where I live in Minnesota, you can let a breathing, living baby die on a table in the hospital room should the mother not deem its life worthy, or it just didn't want to be inconvenienced here. So in a weird way, it almost got worse in America throwing back Roe. Again, it was the right decision. It belonged in the states here. I would be fine with legislation that said we are done at 12 weeks, never bring this up again. But we don't. We don't live there right now. It's back in the states. And from a voting perspective here, you could make it 12 weeks and then you would probably lose every election because we need to change minds first in the American people to be like, maybe it's not okay to murder babies. But we're not there, but it's back in the states. But yes, more babies have been aborted since that got overturned because states just opened it wide up. And you have like 98% of the time it's elective. So don't spare me the rape and the incest stuff here, the 0.01%. It is almost entirely elective. You just don't value human life. But you do value the lives of illegals here. You value the lives of illegals so much that they need to stay in the country. They need to be represented in our country to the point that they have more representation than I do as an American citizen. But again, back to Mike Lawler. He doesn't like what's happening in Illinois. So isn't he taking a bold stance? Never talked about it before. But now Republicans are trying to do something, which is, of course, right. Gerrymander the hell out of every state possible because they're in power, and that is their duty, and that's what Democrats do. So it is only fair. But now he doesn't like it.
Where the tie-breaking vote made this declarative statement. Republicans got to draw the map last time, so I'm going to give it to the Democrats, even though it meant resulting in 3 Republicans getting elected. We have to actually have neutral districts across this country.
All right, folks, I hope you're sitting down for this nugget right here. You need to understand that this idea of neutrality has been a lie perpetrated by politicians, the media, your school system, your government school system. This is a lie. There is no such thing as neutrality. I honestly think Mike Lawler is just low IQ and brainwashed, and he hasn't woken up yet. He is still plugged into the matrix here. You can't have anything neutral in politics. It is one or the other. Either a Democrat wins the seat or a Republican wins the seat. That's it. That is it. What is a neutral district? You mean like everything is purple in theory? Like it could go either way because we always catered to the middle or the lowest common denominator? Number one, I don't believe in that. Number two, I don't think everyone should vote. That's neither here nor there. Number three, though, this just isn't realistic. Like we live in a politicized world now more than ever. It's one or the other. Either the Democratic vision of communism wins or the America First vision wins out. What does a neutral district means? Like, am I supposed to carve up a district 50-50 down the middle and hopefully one more person shows up? Because I honestly don't know who hasn't made up their mind what kind of vision they want for America. Do you love talking to people that are like, well, I'm not registered one way or the other? And by the way, I'm not registered, doesn't matter. I always listen to what the candidates say, and then I vote based on that. I'm not just some blind Kool-Aid drinker that always votes D or always votes R. And I'm sorry, if you're an independent, like you change your mind every election cycle because you believe what people say on the campaign trail, you are also proof why I don't think everybody should be allowed to vote. It is very simple. The rule is if you have a D behind your name at this point, you're a communist. And I don't care what you say. We did a clip on the American Tribune today about John Fetterman. He's like, I got to give Trump credit. He was really right on the tariffs. But Fetterman's going to go right back to voting solid D whenever something comes up in the Senate. Like, he is the guy that the Democrat Party chose to just like remind people that Democrats are normal or pretend that Democrats are normal. So they hear this, they're like, oh, look, Democrats aren't insane. Even John Fetterman agreed with Donald Trump's tariff policy. Well, then how about you support Donald Trump? Yeah, I mean, Fetterman, after so many times doing this, he's like, he was right on tariffs. He was right on this. He was right on that. It's just like, okay, then why aren't you a Republican, John Fetterman? But no, he always goes and votes back for D. So he's the guy that they push out in front of there to make Democrats sound reasonable. Democrats are the party of straight up communism. You need to check out our podcast that Jason Robertson and I did, where we went through, and I always forget her last name. Her first name's Kat. She was born to Palestinian parents. And we went to her website, her campaign website. It is just the most insane radical communist thing. And none of that is hyperbolic. It is literally insane. It is literally the most radical, and it is literally communism. She said, I have a solution for education. Free everything after the age of 3. I got a solution for healthcare. Free healthcare for everybody. I got a solution for borders. No borders. Everybody's allowed to come in here. I got a solution to take care of the illegals. They all get taxpayer goodies. Like her campaign is based on the premise of we will just give you everything for free. Doesn't ask how it'll be paid for. Doesn't ask if that's good for people. Doesn't have to ask how it'll be implemented or what's going to, just free stuff. Just don't think about it. Just be a brainwashed NPC sheep. Vote for me, vote for communism. But that is the Democrat Party in 2025. And I always make the point, this is who they all are. I don't believe in moderate Democrats. I don't believe in these fence-sitting people that are like, well, I listen to the candidate to see what I agree with. No, you either have a D behind your name or an R behind your name. Start there. And if they have a D behind their name, just get rid of them. Hey, we got Fally in the chat. Fally, good morning. How are you here? Fally has a solution. Get out. That's always my solution here. That's my solution for illegals. That's my solution for mass voting rights. Everybody, get out. Get out of the ballot box. You don't deserve it. Get out of the country, illegals. You don't deserve it. What can I say? But we got to get back to Mike Lawler here. Mike Lawler, again, he was talking about neutrality. That's what started this whole tangent. There's no such thing as politically neutral. This is the problem with these principled Republicans. Their principles, by the way, always come out when they're in power. There's no such thing as neutrality. Democrats don't operate under neutrality, unity, compromise, what's good for America, what's good for democracy. Do we need to run down the list of what Clinton and Obama did for the last 10 years? Adam Schiff, it just came out this morning, coordinated with staffers to leak information on Donald Trump. A staffer apparently said, Schiff, this is treason. And Adam Schiff's like, I don't care. Trump is going down. This is who Democrats are. Why are we compromising them? Why are we giving them more seats in Congress? This is all absolutely insane. Fally says, amen. Yes, the solution is get out.
It would serve the country better. I am going to be introducing legislation to outright ban gerrymandering.
All right, Mike Lawler here. This sums up the Republican Party here. I'm going to introduce legislation now, not 5 years ago, not last week, when all the blue states did it. I'm going to introduce legislation now that Republicans are finally getting some stones. They went through puberty finally and had some testicles drop, and they're like, okay, I guess this is the game. We're going to gerrymander districts because all the other blue states that we just went through, they don't have any red representation. They gerrymandered. But now the courageous Mike Lawler introducing legislation right after Texas finally does something about the gerrymandering of Democrats here. This is infuriating, absolutely infuriating here. Again, go back to his timeline, go to his website. He has never talked about gerrymandering before, except now that it might benefit Republicans. This man is a traitor to the country.
Let alone during mid-decade redistricting, but to not allow it at all. This is fundamentally why Congress is broken. You do not have competitive districts, and so most members are focused on primaries and not actually engaging in a general election.
All right, I guess my question for Mike Lawler, again, I can't imagine a more low IQ take on this. Shame on Mike Lawler. Actually, shame on everyone that voted for Mike Lawler. I'm trying to think of the New York Republicans, Stefanik. There's like this Nicole Meletiakis, something or other, Lawler here. Man, these New York Republicans are just something else altogether. And we wonder why we get like a Susan Collins from Maine. They're all the same, cut out of the same cloth. What does that look like, Mike Lawler? So if we ban gerrymandering, and I should have pulled up a map here. They were gerrymandering in the early 1800s. This is not new. For the last 200 years, Mike Lawler could have been introducing a ban on gerrymandering. 200 years. And he decided, no, today's the day because Donald Trump wants to do it, and that's bad. I had already talked about how Democrat, and I'm going to just include establishment Republican morality, is based on purely what is Donald Trump doing right now. Democrats, never mad about Epstein's client list, never even talked about Epstein. They said you were a conspiracy theorist if our government was run by elite pedophiles. And then like last week, they're like, Trump's on the list, release the list. Why is he hiding the list? And it's like, where have you been? We've been calling for the release of the list for the last however many decades because we care about underage girls getting molested and trafficked and abused. Welcome to the club, the Democrat voters here. But Mike Lawler wants to go to a neutral system that bans gerrymandering. And I'm asking this question for Lawler, honestly, because I have no idea. What does that look like? How do you create a neutral district? There is no such thing. I've been to Phoenix here. I actually saw Bob Saget before he passed away. Bob Saget did a comedy show in Phoenix where I lived at the time, and he called it Tron because Phoenix is built on a grid. And I'm thinking to myself, fine, if America was all these like 1 mile by 1 mile roads and it was all Tron throughout the country, in the words of the great Bob Saget, maybe you could create actual squares. But then you see the problem that Mike Lawler would run into is that even in those squares, a different amount of people live there. So now you can't base your districts on geography alone because there are going to be then bigger squares and smaller squares. But then we also know that in the bigger squares that are more rural, those people tend to vote Republican. So now is that gerrymandering just because you did it as innocuously as possible? Big square, big rural district, red district. So now they would have to counter that. Do you see that the solution to this is already that they would have to carve out a certain square so that it would be Democrat to remain neutral, and all of a sudden you've defeated the premise? So no matter what district you live in, you're already not getting a fair shake of this. I live in Minnesota. I don't have a fair shake in anything in Minnesota politics here. No matter how much you gerrymander in one spot or eliminate it in one spot, you have to counterbalance it somewhere else. And the only way to counterbalance that is gerrymandering. Like, I'm asking this seriously. What does Mike Lawler think this looks like? This guy is absolutely as low IQ as it gets here. And I had to pull this up as well. I think now we can segue over to this here. I asked Super Grok, because I am a premium member. I have a blue check on X, so look at me. I asked it if its Civil Rights Act in 1964 allowed for gerrymandering. Grok is usually pretty good. I think the TLDR is that, yes, part of the Civil Rights Act basically created black-only districts. So even though Grok says no, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 does not require states to gerrymander black districts. If you go down a little bit here, it says, however, the Voting Rights Act of 1965, particularly Section 2, requires states to ensure that minority voters, including black voters, of course, at the time this was written, they should have just said black voters, have an equal opportunity to elect representatives of their choice. This has sometimes, yes, Grok, sometimes led to the creation of majority-minority districts to prevent vote dilution, but it doesn't explicitly require gerrymandering here. I will simply say that the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, Barry Goldwater was right. We did not need them. They did not advance any sort of prosperity in these minority populations. It made communities entirely dependent on the government. It gutted the nuclear family. introduce all sorts of crime, because now if you prosecute a minority criminal, that makes you look bad. I always remember when I worked in North Minneapolis for a year. Anyone familiar with Minnesota is like, oh, North Minneapolis. Yeah, I worked at a middle school in North Minneapolis. It was absolutely as bad as you can imagine. And then on the first day of school, I think we had 2 Hmong kids get in a fight. School fight, middle school kids, they're big and strong at this point. They're out for keeps. It happens during the school day, so we all have to break it up. And the other administrators, I was part of the administrative team. I was new at the school. This was like day 1 of me working there. But the other administrators, they were lifers in this just sweet little gig of working in government education and urban centers here, because you're paid really well. You're not accountable for anything. Nothing you do matters. So they're getting paid really well just to sit there and sound good and, ruin kids' lives and teachers' lives. And they're like, thank goodness. And they're all celebrating the fact that these 2 Hmong kids got in a fight. They said, wow, this will really help our racial disparity problem, because it's always black kids that get in a fight. And they were happy that 2 Hmong kids could have been seriously hurt getting in a fight. And they weren't joking. They were serious. They said, this will help us when we report our data that they already lie about. There was a good thread on Twitter, actually, about how I started the thread on Twitter. What am I saying? I had some good comments on that. But schools always underreport violence and mayhem and disruptions and whatever else is happening here. So then they're like, hey, look at this. Incidents are down 50%. And then if you dig into it, you're like, you reported 50% less incidents. What are you talking about? But they were able to report to the superintendent that we weren't 100% violent black kids. We were like 90%, because the 10% of that fight, the Hmongs bringing it up there. It's just like, Jesus. So I don't even know where I was going with that. North Minneapolis. But I worked in North Minneapolis for a year. Oh my gosh. Valley is on fire. Look at this. They're showing their ass. They're showing how much they have been gerrymandering. They've been doing it for years. Yes, Valley. This is all Democrats have done. I'm going to show my screenshot for you, Valley. You joined a little bit later there, but if you catch the beginning of the show, yes, they have been doing it for a long time. Yes, they are doing it right now. Power, that's all they want. Power and control. Valley, you belong in the show here. That's exactly what I said too. Destroy the family unit. Yeah, they want to help us. It's like seeing the signs in national parks. Don't feed the wildlife, because they get dependent on your peanuts and your bananas. Well, what happens when you feed the families and you put them on welfare? Do they become dependent? Maybe. But Valley, I'm going to show this clip for you. Maybe. I got to remove Mike Lawler. I can't take any more of Mike Lawler. Yeah, Valley, we're just going over some stats here. Man, add this to the stage. But all of these blue states, Valley, it's too bad when Donald Trump does it. It's too bad when Republicans do it. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Maine, New Mexico, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, Hawaii, Delaware. Look at all those Republican voters, and look at all of the goose eggs for Republican representation. But folks, you need to be mad that Texas is going to create 5 new districts. What's even more astounding about this narrative is that these are like legitimately redrawn districts. And I'm not saying this as a Trump supporter. I'm just looking at this saying, like, more people moved in. We're not counting illegals, which never should have been on the census in the first place. Like, this is just a legitimate creation of new districts. Yes, your population has grown. Yes, we are counting American citizens. And also, by the way, we're in power, so we can do this regardless of whether or not the other 2 criteria exist. But this is all on the up and up. You get to create new districts. Valley is saying, wow, you knew it was bad, Valley. You had no idea it was this bad. The Democrat gerrymandering machine is unreal. It is unreal. And Valley says they're crying. This is, again, I feel like I've been calmer today. Let me know in the chat if I've been calmer than I usually am here. I am trying to present this information so that my family members, friends that just don't want to have any part of politics, but they're like, I'll support your show, Todd. I'll listen to that. I'm trying to present the stat as straightforward as possible. I don't think I need to yell about this. I'm just like, folks, do you see that data? We have, how many states is that? 8 states? 8 states with an average of like 40% of Trump voting has 0 representation. That's almost 1/5 of the entire country's states that have 0 Republican seats because of gerrymandering. Do you not get this? Gerrymandering. And now Mike Lawler is out there saying, oh, gerrymandering's bad. I'm going to introduce legislation. I can't get over this Mike Lawler clip, by the way, folks. If anything's going to set me off today, it's Mike Lawler, who has known about gerrymandering his entire adult life. And now that Donald Trump and Republicans are finally leveling the playing field, now he's like, I found my principles and I don't like gerrymandering. Every single time. It is every single time with Republicans. Oh, Paul Reese coming in hot. I can read this comment because we're on Rumble and X only here. And YouTube, I've actually gotten away with a lot of stuff on YouTube. So, Paul, I'm going to read your comment out loud. Yes, destroy the family, you destroy America. LA medical tracking stillbirths are up 20%. The vaccine at work, safe and effective. Yes, always welcome to get a vaccine comment. Actually, I probably shouldn't have read that. YouTube flagged my one episode on Fauci and RFK Jr. Things got really dicey over there, but they took my video down on YouTube. I can't even explain why they did. They're going to probably take this one down again. YouTube, I'm just quoting a comment from the comment section. I didn't say that myself, although Paul. And Fally says they want to get rid of the electoral vote. I mean, that's the other thing here. So eventually that is the end game here. What is that called? They call that the Interstate Compact. So many states have signed up for that. Of course they want to get rid of the Electoral College. One of the greatest safeguards in history, if you believe in like republicanism, small r Republican government. Total democracy, this wide open direct democracy, is a horrible model because it always ends in tyranny every single time. I don't have time to explain that process today, but there are some great shorter videos out there. But maybe I'll have to break it down. If I actually find out my family members and friends listen to the show, I will do a 1-hour defense of the Electoral College. It is that important. All right, we haven't even gotten into the other clips yet. So Fally was saying, wow, they're crying, even though you see the stats here, and this is insane. The Democrats have been gerrymandering for a long time now. Here is Massachusetts governor, and I always forget her name. Her name doesn't matter. She's just a cog in the establishment machine. Heatley, something like that. Doesn't matter. She has a bad haircut. She is exactly what you would think a Democrat governor would look like as a middle-aged woman. Here she is, though, saying, we can't stand for this. And I just want to point out, folks, Massachusetts is at the top of that list. 36% Republican vote, 0 House seats. But here she is complaining about gerrymandering.
Other governors have talked about redistricting in retaliation. Is that something you would consider in Massachusetts?
You know, isn't it a sad state of affairs that that's where we're at, okay? And, you know, Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton have left us no choice. That's the reality. Nobody came looking for this, right?
I beg to differ, whatever her name is. No one came looking for gerrymandering. No one came looking. Governor, have you seen how many House seats belong to Republicans in your state? I'm not looking at that because apparently nobody came looking. She says they started the fight. This happens every single time. Like I said, if you're a narcissist, if you're a Democrat, it's one and the same. They can do whatever they want. Push buttons, poke, prod, outrage you. As soon as you notice and react, suddenly you started it. That is the Democrat playbook. It is every single time. We can gerrymander. This is just par for the course. This is normal. They're just Democrat seats. But my God, you're going to create a Republican seat? These people have gone too far.
We had a system of free and fair elections. We have maps that are regularly drawn, voted
I'm going to let her finish this clip right here.
on by legislatures, approved and signed off on by governors. This is the
All right. So her defense here of Massachusetts, I'll just use Massachusetts as an example, 36%, 0 House seats. That is where she is from. We had maps that got redrawn. They were approved by a Democrat-run Congress. They were signed by a Democrat governor. They were all signed off. They were all approved. Imagine my shock that a state like Massachusetts, which has always had a Democrat governor, always has had a Democrat majority in its legislative bodies at the state level. Imagine my shock that they would sign off on districts that end up with Democrats in charge. I am so shocked by this, but she wants you to think that that is democratic. But then riddle me this. Again, my Democrat voters out there, she just laid out the steps. Map drawn, approved by legislator, signed by governor. Let me know where I'm wrong about this, but down in Texas, they are drawing maps. The legislative body is going to sign off of it, and then the governor is going to sign it into law. What is the difference between what she just said Massachusetts does and what Texas is doing? The only difference, I have to answer this question because I have Democrats in the audience. The only difference is that when Democrats do something, it is good, and when Republicans do something, it is bad. It is that blatant and obvious here. I am going to play her clip one more time, what the process is for creating districts, and then I'm going to have you ask yourself, what is Texas doing that's different? And the answer is nothing.
Donald Trump, Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton have left us no choice. That's the reality. Nobody came looking for this, right? We had a system of free and fair elections.
All right. And as soon as they say something, you know they're lying. Doesn't that just make you wonder, like, how free and fair are these elections? I lived through 2020. I saw the media collusion. I saw the signature acceptance rate on these mail-in ballots that was through the roof. I saw censorship online. I saw media downplaying other stories like someone's laptop, let's say. I now know that the Obama administration colluded with the deep state to frame Donald Trump in a certain light and lie and hoax about him for all those years. What is free and fair about any of that, by the way? So you've got voters that listen to the mainstream media, and you're telling me that this is free and fair? It's already not free and fair if you have voters that believe the news. So spare me all of that. Spare me all of it. But here she goes. She's going to outline the process to create districts. And then I'm going to ask you, how is Texas doing this differently?
We have maps that are regularly drawn.
Okay, maps that are regularly drawn.
Voted on by legislatures.
Voted on by legislatures.
Approved and signed off on by governors.
Approved and signed off on by governors. It is a 3-part process according to this bad haircut governor over here. Let me spell this out. Number 1, redraw districts. Well, Texas is redrawing the districts. That's how they came up with 5 new seats. So it sounds like we're on the same page so far. Number 2, voted on by legislative bodies. This would be happening if not for the fleeing of Democrats out of their state. So I don't know. I don't see any difference there so far. They would vote it on. So apparently the caveat here, do Republicans, I don't even know if they have enough to make a quorum in Massachusetts. Are there any Republican state legislators? But we try to put it in front of a legislative body. We'll change it up that way. So we're 2 for 2 and then signed by the governor. So Greg Abbott would sign that. Folks, if you're a Democrat viewer, if you're a Democrat family member or friend watching the show right now, and the next time I see you at a family gathering, can you let me know how this is different? For the life of me, it looks identical. And I'm having a really hard time figuring out when she says it's okay, but when the other side does it, that is immoral and evil and wrong, and it is, we'll get to Jasmine Crockett. See, she says it's racist because it affects black people, because of course it does. You let me know, though, my Dem voting family members and friends, where I'm off on this. I haven't even heard her finish the talk. Let's just see what she has to say.
It's the way the system works.
Oh, it's not how it works. So you got to understand, the system works when Democrats do something, and the system's not working when Republicans do something. I just saved you like a semester of political science. That, in a nutshell, is political science. When Dems do it, it's good. When ours do it, it's bad. All right, I actually can't listen to her anymore. So I got to get to the Jasmine Crockett clip here. She has as you would imagine, a very high IQ take on this. Jasmine Crockett has always got something insightful, wise, eloquent to say about any topic here. So why don't we all just thank Jasmine Crockett for her erudition as we listen to this take on Texas redistricting.
For us to have the conversation around the fact that this is bigger than Texas. This isn't just about the 5 seats in Texas. This is about a power grab. It is about basically setting the tone for what Donald Trump will try to do throughout this country so that he can suppress the voices of black and brown folk just so that he can stay in power.
I'm trying to figure out how to comment on that first. Oh, Jazzy. I mean, the rumors are she will be out of a House seat should this redistricting go into effect. All I can say is there is a God in the universe of Jasmine Crockett. I mean, if you're on the fence about the existence of God, like, things happen in my life. It's hard for me to believe anymore. You're an atheist. You're like, this is all ridiculous. Just understand, if Jasmine Crockett loses her House seat, it'll be like, this is a miracle. There is proof that there's a higher power out there. Jasmine Crockett is out of Congress. But of course she has to do the racial angle. I'll tackle that second here. But again, the very first part, if you took away all context, you didn't know who she was, you didn't know that Texas was Republican led, and you just heard the spell out, you're like, well, hold on a second. Seems to me like you're redistricting. And again, I showed you the numbers. I showed you the maps. Democrats have always been gerrymandering. I've never heard them complain about it whatsoever. Mike Lawler, I've never heard complain about it either. When Trump does it, it's bad. This is an iron law. This is an iron law of politics. When Dems do something, it is good. When Republicans do the identical thing, it is bad. That is all they have on this. And Trump's trying to get power. Yes, this just in. Politicians try to accrue power, and I'm fine with it. I have woken up. I don't believe in neutrality anymore. I don't believe in political compromise anymore. I don't believe in wasting my time with the other side. Your side has horrible ideas. That's why I didn't vote for it. Why am I going to compromise with you? I'm not going to compromise with a communist. Or let's see, I don't believe in abortion. You believe in abortion. So let's just say like 20 weeks in a row. Like, no, why? How is this winning? I believe in my side getting power. You believe in your side getting power. So let's just go to this neutral district that ends up gerrymandering for black representatives like Jasmine Crockett. And you telling me that's good for America. When has compromise ever worked? And when has compromise ever even feasible in the real world? Some side is always going to win. I want it to be my side. Yes, I want every state to gerrymander as many districts as possible because that's what you do, and that is the only moral action at this point. If Republicans don't gerrymander as many seats as possible, what they are saying is, I am okay with communists winning more seats, communists becoming more prominent, spreading more communist propaganda, implementing more communist policies and programs that destroy the country, limit your freedoms, make you poor. I don't like any of that. Why am I going to compromise with that? So yes, gerrymander everything there. But again, Jasmine Crockett, when Illinois, when New York, let's see, her seat got gerrymandered. I just talked about the Civil Rights Act. Her seat exists because of gerrymandering. Do you not understand this? She is only there because we had to gerrymander a district for the minority representation. How is that a free and fair election when you are automatically plugged into DC just for the color of your skin? So that's outrageous enough here. And don't tell me if you're a Democrat voter, like it's good because they were slaves. I saw a great tweet. Actually, I got to pull this up here, just word for a second. Folks, bear with me here. I prompted myself to, this was just too good. Oh no, we just redid our whole platform here. I don't know where the chat is. Okay. All right, so speaking of, gerrymandering for black districts, but they deserve it because all that. This person asked on Twitter, why does black history focus so much on the last 200 years and not at all on the first 2,000 years in which black people were living in mud huts and eating each other? It's almost as if black people did absolutely nothing of historical importance until white people decided to use them as farm equipment. I don't know. I thought that was funny. Like, that is a good question, though. Black History Month always celebrates like the last 100 years, and then you're just like, well, maybe Wakanda. Let's see. Fally's got some comments here. What do you call it when libtards do it? I know that is my question here, Fally, and I'm refraining from using the word libtard today. I can read your comment there, and I think we're on the same page. I don't know how a Democrat would defend this. Jasmine Crockett has certainly she'll never be asked to explain the difference. Jasmine, what do you think about Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, New Mexico, and all these other states that have gerrymandered? What do you think about the Civil Rights Act that allows for the gerrymandering of districts like yours, where the black vote suddenly gets more power than the average American vote because we created a district just for you and your people? I don't think she'll ever be asked that. If she were, she'd be like, but Trump, Trump, Trump. And as Fally would say to that, that is TDS. But that's my question. I did this show today because I wanted some of my Democrat family members and friends to see a more measured Todd. And I just want to ask questions. Where were you before? Do you have a problem with them doing it? And don't give me the Mike Lawler answer of like, I have a problem with Illinois and Texas doing it. That's why I introduced legislation. Like, you never said anything before. You don't get to be mad about it now. Notice it now because Trump's doing it. But then more to the point, why is it a bad thing? Like, why is it a bad thing that we are gerrymandering? I guess that's my last question for the show today. I am here for it. I am here for as much gerrymandering as possible. I would expect, we have seen that Democrats would do it. Why shouldn't our side do it? Why shouldn't we carve out as many seats as possible? Why shouldn't we boot off the illegals? Why shouldn't we redistrict maps to allow for more Republican representation here? And again, it's not even a promise that you're going to get a good Republican in there, but it's better than, I guess, a nominal Democrat at this point. Why shouldn't we? This is what you do when you're in power. You try to stay in power. And I voted right now. Thank God my vote held out in November here. I can only imagine a Kamala Harris administration. Do you think they would do some more gerrymandering? Absolutely, by the way. And would you be complaining about a Democrat voter? Absolutely not. You have no principles. Your principles are, what are Donald Trump and the Republicans doing? I'm going to do the opposite. Be mad about the opposite thing. Those are your principles. Just understand that. Be honest with yourself. But why can't we? This is absolutely what they need to do. I am calling for mass gerrymandering. I would also call for mass deportation of illegals, mass booting illegals off the census, limiting who gets to vote in the first place here, because every single person that voted for Jasmine Crockett is, again, proof that voting is too easy and needs to be restricted. If you think Jasmine Crockett is the kind of person you want representing yourself in Congress, then you have forfeited your right to vote in my new America. We just can't have it. And I know Dems are going to be like, yeah, but you voted for Trump. What does that say? You tell me what Donald Trump is actually doing bad, and you can say Epstein list. You can say not doing enough deportations. You can say not abolishing the income tax. You can say not abolishing the Fed. I'll give you a list of things you can complain about with Donald Trump. just understand everything that you think is wrong with Donald Trump is wrong. But I would love to hear why you think, because I would get that. Well, you voted for Trump, so what are you going to say about Crockett voters? I am telling you that they are not the same. And I would love to hear your list of why Trump is bad. And I'd like to hear it more than one sentence, because the problem with Democrats as well, they hear it on the news, they get a little soundbite, they love their bumper sticker slogans. So they're like, why is Trump bad? And they'll say, Donald Trump, and they like add 5 more words and then put a period. And then you ask them a follow-up question, and they just repeat it again because they actually don't know why they believe anything at this point. And I guess we are getting kind of personal here. You don't know why you believe that, though, if you're a Democrat. It sounds good. You've never, asked yourself, is it actually good? I mean, it sounds good, but does it do good? Is it good for individuals? Is it good for a society? Never. No, not if it's a Democrat policy. But you don't ask those questions. You just say, well, that sounds nice. Yes, someone will take care of the illegals. I wonder who's going to pay for it. I wonder where they're going to stay. I wonder what they're going to do when they're going to get here. I wonder what their kids are going to be up to. You don't ask those questions. You're just like, yeah, that sounds nice. I'm going to put that on my car, drive around with a little bumper sticker, and feel good about myself. I am personally not doing anything, but I voted for Democrats, so I know something good is happening here. Like that, those are the Democrats. Yeah, Donald Trump. He's only been in office 7 months. Give him time. I have to remind myself it's only been 200 days. Like, look at all of the winning that we've had with Donald Trump. And I think I skirted on the Epstein issue. Like, make no mistake, like that was a big bummer there, especially when Pam Bondi was like, it's on my desk, and then they're like, it doesn't exist. And then they give you the cell footage to convince you that nothing happened. And you're like, hold on a second. You said there was no cell footage the first time. Like, what part of the story is true? So you can only conclude that, yes, we are absolutely run by a circle of elite pedophiles. I don't know. I don't even know if you need a tinfoil hat for that. You're just like, this seems pretty obvious now. Disappointing. Also, we're big kids, and we're like, everything else is getting a lot better. It had to be Donald Trump. Do you think Kamala... And I was like, would Kamala Harris release the Epstein list? Like, what are we even fighting about at this point? There are just some things that we are just not going to tackle in my lifetime, probably. But yeah, he's only been in 7 months, and great things are happening. I do want to hit the gas pedal, though, on deportations. I cannot stress enough, we need mass deportations. We need mass incarceration of bad guys here. I cannot wait. I didn't even touch on current events here, but Donald Trump mobilizing the National Guard and federalizing the DC police, game changer. I am so excited. Well, number one, like I said, Democrat morality is like, oh, Trump's doing it, so it's bad. Democrats are saying, I want crime in DC. I want these thugs to murder people and assault people and rob people, and I want them to do horrible things to each other. Democrats are advocating for crime in the city. And of course, Democrats love crime anyways. Like, it's not hard to figure out what to do in a crime-ridden society. You take the El Salvador approach, the Nayib Bukele approach, and you say, if you do bad things, if you are associated with bad people, you will be removed from society. And look what happened to El Salvador. It is safe. So Donald Trump, finally, someone is going to do about it here, going to establish rules saying you can't do X, Y, and Z. And if you do X, Y, and Z, you will no longer be part of our community or any community in America. You can have your own walled community. This is going to work out great. Again, another tangent. How many tangents can we go on with Democrat hypocrisy? They were like, 20,000 National Guard and a fence around the Capitol building after January 6th. And now they're like, he can't bring in the National Guard. That's what a fascist would do. And it's like, where have you been? It was only 4 years ago you guys called in the National Guard to just foment this false narrative about January 6th being an insurrection here. You were fine with the National Guard in D.C. so that those dastardly unarmed Trump supporters wouldn't have a second go at the Capitol building, apparently. Also, that narrative was fake, Dem voters. I don't know what else to tell you. You got lied to about January 6th. Yeah, but now the National Guard's coming back in to actually remove bad guys, not the made-up boogeyman Trump supporter, but the actual bad guys, the looters and the thieves and the muggers and the assaulters and the murderers in D.C., they can all be removed by the Nat Guard and the federalized police force now. But that's bad. Sally does say, don't worry that Epstein will come out. We have a high record of people wanting to join ICE. I got to say, this is pretty awesome here. Again, this is also a big difference. I'm just going to rip on Dems for the last few minutes of the podcast here. We put our money where our mouth is. And I'm not going to say, I can't say we necessarily. I'll say more conservatives than libs. Generally, it is conservatives because I'm not signing up for ICE, even though I believe in a secure border. But many conservative Americans, people that just want to support their country, are enlisting in the military, signing up for ICE. ICE has some great signing bonuses right now, by the way. Like if you were 18 out of school and you're like, I don't want to go get brainwashed in college, I'm going to join ICE. I'm going to get some sweet benefits. But people in the conservative movement, much more likely to actually put their money where their mouth is. How many Dems, other than marching for George Floyd, they skipped work and ignored their kids so they could go march for racism or something in America, other than doing a stupid protest sometimes with masks on, when do they ever do anything that puts their money where their mouth is? And I would say hardly ever. You see those lovely signs in like, hate has no home here, like all lives matter, or Black Lives Matter. You can't say all lives matter. Black Lives Matter. We believe in science. Like they do all these, again, the slogans, the bumper sticker lifestyle of Democrats here. They don't sign up for stuff like this. Nobody enlisted. I always bring this up now in my circles of friends and family gatherings, and I don't think it goes over well. All these idiots, though, that voted to continue the war in Ukraine by by voting for Kamala Harris, we got to support Ukraine, man. I have a blue and yellow bio in my social media profile. I have a lapel that is blue and yellow. And I ask them, when are you enlisting? And they look at you like, their eyes say it all. They're like, I'm not enlisting. What are you talking about? That would be insane. So then you ask them, so you're fine. So you don't want to get killed. You don't want to slow down your life. You don't want to have to interrupt anything that you're doing. Your life is too important. You're too important. But you're fine with the continuation of just the slaughter of innocents. And I include every citizen and soldier in that phrase of innocence. None of these people should be getting killed. That's why I voted for Donald Trump, to draw that conflict down, and it will be. Yeah, they are the weekend warriors. They are the keyboard warriors. So you voting for Democrat because you believe in Ukraine's sovereignty, which, by the way, you believe in Ukraine's sovereignty more than America's sovereignty. They can secure a border. They can't have land stolen from them by an aggressive nation. But we have to put up with a wave of illegal colonization for what it is. You won't even vote to defend our country, but you'll vote to defend that country. But then you won't even sign up to defend the country you're voting to defend. It is all madness. My Democrat voting family members and friends, I have just one ask. As we wind down the show here today, can you just pick one thing? I asked a lot of questions for you guys today. I have pointed out a lot of hypocrisy today. Can you just do one thing? Just pick out one thing from that list and just explain it to me like I'm 5, because from where I'm sitting here, none of this adds up here. I actually just focus on the gerrymandering thing since that was the theme of the show today. Dems gerrymander everything, but they want you mad at Trump for gerrymandering for the first time ever. For the first time ever, Republicans are going to gerrymander their way into more power, and I am here for it, but you're mad about it. And my question is, why? And when have you ever spoken up before about gerrymandering? So I look forward to your responses here. But folks, we have crossed over the 60-minute mark. This was how long my run was today, 102. Actually, I was 103. Let's see if I can get the exact same time for my run in my podcast today. Fally, I got to give a special thank you to Fally today for joining the whole show here. Pleasure having you in the comment section, Fally. Paul Reese over at Split Rock Coffee. Again, folks, one more time, that is splitrockcoffee.com. Use promo code TOD10. They got all sorts of new offerings coming out here. Paul is still building. I think Paul is on the path to develop a huge roasting facility too, so we'll keep you updated on that. Jason was back in the program earlier saying I was highly caffeinated. I think, yep, caffeinated or exhausted, in that weird zone of like I'm really tired. But we got the adrenaline for the show and from the run, so we're going to power through today. But folks, everyone that tuned in today, I appreciate it. We got a high number count over on the X there, and Rumble's looking pretty healthy. Nobody on YouTube. I still have a green check on YouTube, so I think we're live. Nobody checked in on YouTube. They rarely do. I don't think YouTube likes our content, so they don't push it out there. Oh, Fally, I got to get to this comment, and then we're out of here. Love it, Todd. My neighbor has a flag up that's been twisted up for months. You'd think they would fix it because it's so important. And Jason says, I think you could go another 20 minutes. That's what I heard my wife say. I don't know. I don't know why I did that. All right, folks, we're going to get out of here. We are going to sign off here. I had a fun show today. I had fun asking my Democrat family members and friends some questions. Let's see if they respond. I'm going to let you know on Thursday, folks, if anybody responds to my questions. And I would, you know what? Ask your neighbor about that Ukraine flag, Kelly. Ask him about the Ukraine flag. If it was so important, forget about enlisting. Can you unfurl your flag for a second? Jesus. All right, folks, with that being said, I'm going to get out of here. We are going to play the intro music as an outro because I am now skipping it forever. Paul was in like the repost, like 10 seconds live. So I don't know if we're playing intro music again, but I'll give you the intro is the outro. And we'll see you on Thursday. Have a great day.